Hey, I'm going to make a demo of the proposed application structure, and as an example I will take tag API, where tag is simple entity which has fields like a name, description, some other, and this entity is saved into the Mongo database. For a tag API, I have implemented methods, web API methods like getting list of tags, creating new tag, updating or deleting a tag. I can imagine application structure or web API solution structure like that. We have an entry point as a web API method. It could be a controller. Inside the controller we have a service layer which then hosts a repository, and then repository is connected to the database. Responsibilities of the repository is actions like get, create, update or delete, and responsibilities of a service is like a higher level actions like getting list of something, search something, create new one, modifying or marking as delete instead of deletion entity via the repository. Composition of this object is just some simple hierarchical, where we have an API controller which hosts an instance of the service, and the service itself can host several repositories which then connected via single database connection to the database. In the code it can be presented like that. We have a web API project with a controller, and we have a single tag controller. In this tag controller we have an instance of the service provided by the dependency injection, and then we in the web API methods, for example, like a getting all entities, we just pass the invocation to the service layer. Same goes for getting by ID, same goes for creating, update or delete an entity. All the routines are passed to the service layer. Service in its implementation hosts it gets an instance of the tag repository. We have a base service implementation, and this base service hosts generic repository of the any instance. Repository has actions like get, create, update or remove. Implementation of the repository of the base one is just invocation against Mongo collection with actions like find, list, find one, insert, replace or delete on the Mongo collection entity. Higher level actions at the tag service is like get all when we are looking for list of entities. For example, with is archived field equal to false. When we are going to delete something, instead of deletion we are updating an entity and setting it is archived field to true. So service is a higher level which then takes a repository of the generic entity and then executes actions on the against the persistence level. It works fine for a simple scenarios like we need to get list of some entities, updating an entity or removing an entity. The problem starting to be here when we together with a simple operation need to do something extra. And for this a bit more complicated scenarios I have other proposition together with this simple one. Basically it's using common query segregation responsibility pattern, where our API hosts a mediator, and this mediator just forwards actions like command or query to the service, to the repository, to the database. Command itself could have additional actions like validation. For example, we need to validate some parameters which are sent for creating an entity. Same goes for caching. Command itself also could be responsible for caching entities, for invalidating cache, for error handling, or for logging. Same for query. With a query, we can send some additional data like a query parameters or something like that. We can validate the data inside the query, and we can log, like, or audit log all the queries in order to understand the consumption strategy for the API. Under the hood, it's I forgot this error. Under the hood, it uses same data strategy like service, and service hosts as a repository which then talks to the database. From a composition plane, we have same database, same single database connection used by several repositories hosted by the some service, but service instead is instantiated or injected by the command or query, which then hosted inside the web API controller. In the code, it's implemented in the tag version 2. This a bit more complicated version, which hosts a single mediator instance. Then this mediator forwards actions to the features inside the application, and by feature I mean like a tag feature. So this is a list of all actions or everything which is connected with the tags. Inside the tags we are dividing the whole set of features to commands and queries. Query is like a get single item by the ID, or getting list of items by the search criteria. And the same goes for commands. We have a separate command for create, delete, or update a tag entity. Each command itself has a service. Service has a repository. Repository has a connection to the database and executes actions against the persistence layer. As an example, let's check create tag command. Here we have command handler. This is a single handle method available for each command, and inside of command we are passing command request. In the command we do some kind of command specific validation, and the validator of the command hosts together with a command action. For example, we can verify that some fields are not empty, or field requires some validation criteria like max length or something like that. In the command we also do some verification, can we go to the persistence layer or not, and if everything is okay, we are creating our domain entity and pass the domain entity up to the service layer to do the create new tag action. Here, as a response, we provide something from Automapper, like a simplified version of the domain entity. As an example of the get all tags query, we have same handle method, which then executes an action or method on a service layer. Service is absolutely the same used in the first version. Service is injected into the handler. Handler accepts messages by the mediator routing routine. probably that's it. This is proposed application structure for a simple flow where we just need to do some CRUD operations on the basic entities, or for more complicated when we have some logic for something to do extra together with simple CRUD operations. That's it for a simple demo. Thank you so much.